Yo, what's going on, party people? It's the kid, the one and only, El Wavy Baby himself, tapping in one time for the one time from Wavo World. You dig? So, yeah, today, we're gonna do something a little different. But before I even get into that, of course, I wanna thank y'all for tuning in, tapping in from day one until now, and of course, many days ahead. Feel me? So, yeah. As I mentioned, today we're gonna do something a little different. I'm gonna basically break down a movie and the stuff that I saw, being impressed on the subconscious mind, throughout it. And as you can see on the board, Queen and Slim, and you can see the different points that I have on it. Now, instead of highlighting the points like as subjects today, I think I'll just cover it. I think I'll just cover the movie instead. I won't even I just won't make those points that are on the board as subjects. I just won't do that today. But there'll be more reference points that I'll go through to make sure I'm on task and staying on track with getting across the point of what I just saw. I only watched it once, and what I'm aware of is that the eyes are the windows to the soul, and they know that. So it's like subliminal messaging is always used in movies, but some more than others, some for specific points, but anywho, at the end of the day, this is just my opinion. This isn't to say, hey, this is what you should have gotten from the movie. That's not me saying any of that. It's just me knowing that a lot of us watched it. And of course, me now knowing the power of being a melanated person, and then the power of love, for real. Yeah, it's almost as if to say it was a specific attack on it, and it's like, dang, they almost got me. And I think that's why it was so deep for me to go ahead and sit down and talk about it. So yeah, let's jump straight into it. So it's like right off the bat, it's like they're letting us know traditional relationship goals or traditional love that they're feeling we are looking for, that we feel like our grandmothers and grandfathers had, those of us that saw that, right? Anyway, it's almost as if they're trying to say it's dead immediately. They don't meet normally, they meet on Tinder, and it's like, I said this the other day on my Instagram. It's just like, imagine literally dating someone or whatever, and you get married to them, and you have a kid, and as a man, you have a son, and your son asks, "Hey Dad, how'd you meet Mom?" And I'm laughing because if you know me, you know me. Like, it's like I can't imagine telling my kid I met my wife, his mom or her mom, on a dating app. I won't just say specifically anyone, because I don't want to give any bad rep unto anyone, because that's not what I'm trying to do either. But it's just to say that personal interaction, like how we meet people, how we stop to converse and try to meet and make eye contact, with people. Like that's dying, not even slowly, but quickly and quicker when you talk about access to the internet. So it's like it creates more of a, in my opinion, cowardice amongst men to even approach women. It makes the relationship and dating game way more shallow, and I don't think that's opinion. I feel like that's fact. I feel like more people would I feel like more people would agree with that opinion to the point where it could almost seemingly be fact. But so yeah. And then when you talk about from the jump too, she's tearing him down as a man based on just her esteem, her status. Also, to kind of draw that line in between, middle class and lower class people. And no, how they say it, to understand is to know, and knowing is to understand. And those of us who know, amongst our people, you got some of us who become esteemed in whatever field or go off to college or whatever have you, and become whoever, and then look down on the little people, so they say, the lower class. And it's like they're trying to immediately show that line drawn too, between the two of them, because she kind of shoots him down and breaks him down at every moment and chance that she gets from the very beginning of the movie, really just about to the end, even despite all the battles and trials that they went through. It's a point of the very first scene of the very first date where he asked her, like, so what made you what made you pick me? What made you respond? And why tonight? Whatever. And she was just flat out honest with him. She was like, I just didn't want to be alone. And excuse me, hold on. Actually, no, before she says that, she says, I feel sorry for you. And he's just like, she's like, your picture, you had this sad look on your face, and that's when he says, and then she's like, I'm sorry, I didn't want that to come out how it sounds. Well, he's like, well, it did. And then she proceeds to say then too, she didn't want to be alone. She was an attorney, and her client got sentenced to death that day, basically to execution. And even down to this, they kept throwing certain bits of information and shots about just the culture of things, right? Immediately, this is the first scene of the movie, so it sets the tone, right? And he's like, oh man, I'm sorry to hear that. I didn't know that was still legal in this state. She says, yep, absolutely. It's illegal in 31 states. Ohio happens to still be one. So it sets the tone and scenery for where they are, for what happens, what's soon to happen. And then, the tonality for the culture of the time at this time, right? So again, when you talk about that right there, she immediately says she feels sorry for him, right? And then which is the tear him down. And then behind that, she gives reason as to why, in essence, to say her day was bad, and it's the trauma of that day that affected her to even be the way she was that day, much less to say there's trauma that she goes through that made her how she is, that affects how she treats people. And then said to say that he just sat there and took it without just getting up and walking away. That's said to say that that's what we're supposed to do when for love, so to say. And that's not necessarily true either, but you'll get where I'm going. So the next scene, when they're on the drive home, like he's going to take her home, whatever, and they're listening to music, and he's like, what happens now? And she says, what you mean what happens now? You take me home and you have a good night, something like that. And it almost alludes to the fact that it's a Tinder date. What did you think? Like, people, you see what I mean? So the whole culture and setting that they give toward and to the relationship game and dating game, in this culture, like they're basically saying it's dead from jump, right? So how it's almost like how to get to that real profound, real deep love that way. But to say that this movie had that deep of an impact on, again, this culture of people, to give hope back to love, that's crazy to me. Because all throughout the movie, it's like, I just remember toward the end, one of the guys that ended up, taking them where they was trying to get to try to escape. The guy with the gold teeth, toward the end, he says, I know I'm skipping around, but just think real quick. I'll come back. He says, man, we kind of needed that. Gave us something else to really believe in and hope in. And it's like, you can tell they both were thinking like, we barely even know each other. Like, what y'all mean? Like, like how, so to say. And that was the whole premise, like belief in really just false love, so to say. And that's what we have a belief and hope in at this point. But anywho, going back to, beginning parts of the movie, he's taking her home, and he's like, so what happens from here? And she's like, you take her home. And like, she's like, you take me home, and that's that. He's like, I thought maybe I'd, take you home, get to know you a little better. She's like, nah, I'm good. Whatever. She has his phone. She's going through it. She's teasing him, kind of like, and he's not, you can tell he's not liking that or whatever. And she's talking about the song, the Love, it's a song that played in Love Jones. And she was like, did you know of this song before or after Love Jones? And he's like, before. And then she's like, what? She's like this mood about it. And then he's like, okay, yeah, I did rock with it a little more after watching the movie, for context. And she was like, I appreciate your honesty, sir. Whatever. And then she says something that really offended him. I don't remember what it was right off the top of my head. I can only watch the movie one time. And he snatches his phone from her. Like, it really offended him. But he snatches his phone from her and he swerves a little bit. And the police see it a couple, not too far, maybe like 5 car lengths behind him away. And they, blue light him, whatever. And they pull him over. And she asks him, like, do you have any warrants? Do you have any weapons in the car? Whatever. And he's like, no, I don't have any warrants. And I have a pocket knife in the glove box. And she's like, oh, you're good then. He's like, I know, almost as if to say, like, I'm not slow or stupid, girl. Like, and I'm not a bad dude either. I don't know who you think I am or who you take me for or who you used to dealing with, but I'm not none of those guys. It's like he had that type of response, but that was his demeanor, not only throughout that evening and night, but throughout the whole like movie, so to say. So yeah, he gets pulled over, and the guy immediately giving him a hard time, the cop, and he goes back to his car, runs a check on the black guy, that's on the date with Queen, and he runs a check on him, and he tells dispatch, like, I got one black male, one black female, driving erratically, such and so on, such and such, so forth, and possibly DUI. And it was funny because the guy didn't find anything on the check. Obviously, it's because of his approach back to the car, and he comes back to the car, asking him to come get out, whatever. And he's asking him all kind of stupid questions, and it's like, have you been drinking? And he scoffs. The black guy scoffs a little bit, chuckles, and he's like, no. He's like, why do you find that funny, boy? He's like, because I don't drink. And it makes the police officer mad, like, oh, he don't drink, he think he's smart. So he asks him to, pop his trunk for him. And he was like, why? Is there any reason? Like, cause I said so. And it's like, okay. So the guy pops his trunk. And there's a bunch of shoe boxes in there. And the guy's like, so what's in this boxes? He's like, shoes. It's like, you mind if I take a look? It's like, go right ahead. And he's just rummaging through them, but he's like being real brash about it, like being real rude and rough about it. Like you can tell, like he's trying to find something. He's trying to make a reason to make an incident out of this guy. And the guy says, because he's giving him a hard time, he said way more than what I even said, repeated back from the movie about asking him if he's drunk, right? He said way more than that. But boom, he's going through his stuff. Boom, the guy says this, could you hurry up? And the officer looks at him like, boy, like, what they look like, boy, if you don't shut your ass up. And the guy just looks up at him like, I don't mean to offend you, like, but I'm cold. Like, but you can see him literally like shaking, like cold, on top of the fact he's nervous. And the guy pulls his gun on him. The cop pulls his gun on him, tells him to get on the ground. And he's like, are you serious? Like, what reason do you have to do this? And the girl sees this. She's watching through the rear view, and she's hearing everything that's going on. She can see what's going on. And, she then has compassion for him, because again, you got to remember, she's an attorney, and they don't fully disclose the type of clients that she deals with. Obviously, if she has a client that just got sentenced to execution, you can tell she deals with pretty harsh cases, and probably cases that deal with underprivileged men. Let's just say that. Just underprivileged people. Let's just say that too. Right? So she gets out the car. She's like, hey, what's going on? I'm an attorney. What's the reasoning for his arrest, so on and so forth? And he's like, get back in the car, whatever. And she's like, I'm an attorney. What's the reason for his arrest? She's steadily repeating these things. She's like, I'm reaching for my phone. I have the right to record, this process of arrest, whatever. And she at that point, like she's reaching like this when she's saying that. Then she says it again, and she finally like gets to her hip, and she goes to pull upward, and he shoots at her. Now, she ended up only being grazed. But they don't find this out till after the officer is dead. But at that point, when the officer turns his gun back toward Buddy on the floor, Buddy Slim, Buddy on a date with Queen, and I'll allude back to why I keep saying Buddy instead of even Slim. I'll explain that a little later on. But as he goes to point his gun back at guy on the ground, he fights back. He manages to like kind of get the officer restrained without just like hitting him, whatever. But he gets him worked out, whatever, and he pushes the officer off, and he gets to the gun, and the officer goes to like get on top of him again, and as he turns around, he shoots, and the officer obviously dies. Now, Buddy goes to go check on Queen on the ground, and like I said, that's what he finds out. She just got grazed, but everything is then seen. Like you can, they assess everything that just happened. And it's like, at that moment, it's like they assess what happened. And Buddy wants to kind of like turn himself in or whatever, like figure it out, put it together. And she tells him like, no, like we have to go, get in the car. Now, me being me, this is how I know like I really wanted to just watch the movie. I'm so into the movie at that moment. Like, I'm like, bro, like she just told you, get in the car. This is an attorney talking to you, bro. Get in the car. And I'm like, yeah, I definitely wanted to just watch the movie, but it struck me that all of this took place not even within the first 15 minutes for real. And I was just like, dang, to say this is a romance, like they ain't even give us a chance to live it through, as a true romance, But anywho, they get in the car, boom, and they go to the next part of the movie. So he's riding, he's like, well, before they get in the car, it's just like, man, he's telling like, I just want to go home to my family. To him, like at that moment, you can see the importance of family to him, how much he just discerns and expresses that not only in that moment, but even after they get in the car. He's trying to think. They're going over stuff in their head, and it's like the screen is blank for a second, and they're talking, and it's like they putting you in first person, especially me as a black man. Like it put me in first person as if it were me, of course, right? And imagine talking to your mate that you just met on your first date, and this happened, and she makes you get in the car or whatever, and you trying to figure out, you in his shoes, like what to do. And she tells you, yeah, but we figured they were arguing about something, and it was like we made that decision together to leave. And he's like, I don't remember that. And right at that moment, it hit me. It's like they're even alluding to saying most of our relationships aren't mutually handshook on, like, yeah, we're gonna be together, we're gonna stay together. It's a lot of times it's situations that make us say, you know what, yeah, we're gonna deal with this. A kid in most cases or something like that, and we're gonna figure it out, we're gonna work it out, even though we don't even want to be with each other. We're gonna try to figure it out. And it's much more or less, like I say, it's like I'm saying, they're alluding to more and more and more, and most of the relationships that we build are on a basis of we're stuck together for whatever reason, whether it be a forward in life, or whether it be a multitude of reasons that people get stuck together, right? And they'll allude to that immediately, So he pulls over and he's trying to compose his mind, and he's trying to gather like what to do next and what to do in a situation where you're running from the police and so on and so forth. And he's kind of at some point put her in charge, because she's basically made the decision, A, not to go to the hospital, and then B, not to turn themselves in or whatever. So he puts her in the driver's seat when he pulls over, as to where we're going to go from here. Like, we can't just keep driving to nowhere. Excuse me, So when that happens, they pull over. They have this short debate about what to do. And she's like, well, we'll go to my uncle's house. And he's like, well, where does your uncle live? In New Orleans. Which is funny, me being from Louisiana, like, I was like, okay, like, nah, this is finna get deep. Because again, they set the tone when they say Ohio is one of 31 states that still executes people, whatever have you. And then the nature of him just shooting a cop, right? And then they're going to New Orleans. So I definitely understood that they were speaking to us subconsciously, for sure, throughout the movie. So yeah, they start their journey. They get ready to go. They get on the road to New Orleans, and they're down the road at some point. He's listening to, I think it's Marvin Sapp. What song is that? I'm not about to sing it. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm just not in that type of mood. I'm just really not. I ain't gonna lie to you. Normally I would. I bust into a song, get to snap my fingers and everything. It's just not that type of party today, you dig? We on some cool shit today. But it's like, what song is that? Because it's a particular song. I can't think of the name of it, but he's listening to Marvin Sapp, and she's like, can you please turn this off? And he acts like he don't hear, and she's like, can you pull over? He's like, why? Because I'm gonna get out if you're gonna be listening to that. It's like, it's the only thing that calms me down. Well, no, he says, you ain't going nowhere. You in this with me. We in this together. And again, it's just that much more immediate that they'll allude to. They're stuck together. Not that they're together by choice, And to say again that a movie that was supposed to exemplify love for us, that's crazy. But okay, so cool. She turns off the song, and they go into a whole another argument. Touch my radio, whatever. And they end up running out of gas, and they end up running out of gas, and she's fussing at him. You need to be paying attention to it, blah, blah. And he's like, man, I had other shit on my mind, And she's not thinking about that. Like, she's just like trying to get to safety at this point. She's more concerned about her, And it was like that overwhelming thing throughout the movie too. It made her look at as if she was just so overbearingly rude and mean and just angry black woman, as if to say that the overall majority of those women are that, and that the only way that, especially even with the type of career field that she was in, it was almost as if to say that all of those women who become successful are those angry black single women who won't ever get a man unless he's extremely and completely complicit and docile to every beckon and call that she has. And it's like that overtone of the movie was like that doesn't even fit the archetype of what a man should be and is, you know. And it's again like overwhelming overtone over the movie just casts that sense of, if this is what we're supposed to be looking to as a example to exemplify what love and relationships is supposed to be built on, make it make sense. But again, it spoke to a lot of people's subconscious. It bypassed them, so to say. A lot of people didn't get it because this is our reality in most cases, so we could see ourselves in first person being there. So imagine most people accepting that because they can see it, they can feel themselves there enough to be like, you know what, yep, I want this for what they did give you in positive sight, the little hints of, right? But yeah, they run out of gas, and it's funny because I watched it right after having dropped the last episode of Wavo World, and I remember talking about, just saying this: all skin folk ain't kinfolk, and you shouldn't just distrust another because they aren't the same color, and they speak directly to that in saying this in the movie when they run out of gas, and she's like, well, we're going to flag down this car, and he says, well, we gotta just hope that they're black. And she immediately says right behind that isn't always a good thing either. And it almost made me pause the movie, because when I heard that, I was just like, man, she's really speaking to the fact of, we don't even support our people the way we should support our people. So when we talk about that premise of love, we don't even give that love, that trust, that realness to our people the same way we should. So how can we expect everyone else to do it, is basically what she said, but either way, you never know who or whom you'll get it from too, is also what she said in that one quote. So it was so many different ways to take it. But in short, it's an older white guy who actually ends up being an off-duty sheriff. So when they get, he's immediately asking them they're okay, the yada yada yada, what's going on, what their situation is. So it makes them jumpy about it, but they take his help because they don't know how long before other help may come. And by this time, this is when they figure out they're in Kentucky. So that alone made them nervous. They're in Kentucky. They don't know who and who not they can trust. It's split there. So, and it's funny. Throughout the movie, they always alluded to where they were, not directly but indirectly, so that you can get the gist of how they had to think and move about the nature of people in every state that they were in, and what the culture of people and vibe would be. So yeah. So they get in the truck. They try to, the guy's trying to get them to a gas station, whatever. He's asking them, what's going on, what happened, blah blah blah. Small talk, whatever. And Slim, he's in the front seat. He looks down and notices a badge. He's like, oh. And the officer is like, everything's all right. He's like, oh yeah, everything's all right. Just didn't, know you were a sheriff. And she gets a little nervous. And he's like, yeah, but I'm off duty, whatever, yada yada. And he's like, oh. And they start trying to build ways to get out the car. And he's very persistent on insisting on getting them to the gas station like it's his good deed for the day. Almost as if to say, if, how he's talking to them is making them comfortable, yet it's letting them know like, hey, if y'all did something, I'm gonna get you, you know? And he gets to the gas station, and of course they start talking amongst themselves, they're nervous, so on and so forth. And he turns his radio on and gets out the car and goes in the gas station, asks the clerk about a gas can and something else. And he asked him how much to fill it up. He said it'd be $10, something like that. And at that same time, he's asking them how much it is to fill it up. The radio's going off about the incident that happened in Ohio, the manhunt for the two suspects, what they look like, considered armed dangerous, so on and so forth. And he's staring at them. And at the time, Buddy's outside the car pacing back and forth. And she's telling him, like, stop pacing. You look guilty. He's like, I am guilty. And she's like, have you been convicted of anything? And he's like, no. Well, you're not guilty. And even at that moment and at that point, that's alluding to how the system works, right? And she's trying to give hope to him through the system, which they knew the system would fail them. Otherwise, they wouldn't have ran, right? But she's still trying to give him hope, right? But anywho, he's staring at him, and that's when they get to a point where they both say, hey, I think he knows. And of course he knows, he knew. And she says, get in the driver's seat. He gets in the driver's seat. He's frantically, looking around for the keys, finds it in the ignition, begins to crank it up. And the officer pops up at the door. He's like, y'all weren't leaving without me, were you? And the girl pulls the gun on him and tells him, get in the truck. He gets in the truck. He's trying to comfort them, being real soothing about it. Like you could tell he's been in a hostage situation before. He was an off-duty sheriff or whatever. So it's like he knew how to handle them and talk to them. And he's talking to them so comforting and calmingly, like a real negotiator would, to a point where, her being, a lawyer, she understands litigation and understands like how the system works enough to understand that, he wasn't going to help them. That's the premise of what the tone was set at that moment. Like, some people would say, you would think at that moment, if you're in first person, you're in that seat, in those shoes, if you're Slim, because he even says it once they get back, she has the officer at gunpoint, the sheriff at gunpoint, to drive them back to the Honda, their car that ran out of gas. And he mentions that he could help them. And by the time they get back to the Honda, she ends up at gunpoint making them get into the trunk of the car. And he had played his case. I have a son. After his mother died, I'm the only one that takes care of him, so on and so forth. And she says, like, I'm not going to kill you, blah, 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 whatever. And so he then begins to negotiate and bargain on how he can get them out of the situation. Yet, like, as an officer, he's thinking to turn them in. So she puts him in the trunk whenever they get to the car. And Slim kind of gets upset with her, like, why didn't you let him help us? And she explains to him, like, hey, he was not going to help you. He's trying to make you feel comfortable and think that he will, so that he can take you in, and then you become, a part of the system, a warrant of the state. Not a warrant of the state, but a part of the state. And she asks him directly, like, do you want to be a part of the state? And he just looks at her, and he shakes his head, no. So they get in his truck and leaves. So boom, they I think she's driving. yeah, I think she's driving at this time, and she's kind of speeding, whatever. And she's like, "But I'm hungry." Like Slim tells her to slow down, and she's like, Don't worry, I got it. I'm hungry." And crazy stopped to say, the reason why the officer even went in the gas station instead of them is because they had left all of their money and identification in their original car that ran out of gas. So they didn't have anything, any identification, whatever. So when you talk about identity crisis, that's one time they allude to it. They didn't have any identity. They never, and Queen and Slim never said each other's name up until this point in the movie. So when you talk about, we don't even know their names. They never even call each other Queen and Slim. They never once do it until the end of the movie. Yeah, but I'll get to that. But that's the first time they allude to us as a people having identity crisis and not even knowing who we are. We didn't even know who they were. They never said their names. They never even alluded to their nicknames or anything of that nature to the very end of the movie. And then we didn't even find out what their actual real government names were, until they passed away. I don't think anybody caught that, but we'll come back to that too. So boom, she says, they forget their IDs or whatever, which is why the officer goes into that store to get them gas. So when they hold them at gunpoint, whatever, put them in a trunk, and they're now in the officer's truck to go get food. They make it to like this burger place or whatever have you, because the guy says, let's stop at McDonald's or something. And she says, that's disgusting. Now that's the second time where they show you like there's a line drawn in between middle class and then lower class, just black people, so to say. They say once you get to a certain level of money, like your whole level of mind and thinking just changes, stuff you eat, so on and so forth. And most people become vegan once they have so much money. It's what they try to allude to was her situation. And he just tells her, hey, now ain't the time to be picky. So they end up stopping at this burger place or whatever have you. And and this is about to be funny in a second too. So they pull up to this burger place or whatever have you, and this is the second time they allude to they don't have any IDs, they don't have any monies or whatever, because they left their IDs or stuff in that other car. So boom, the second time, right after the first time, they kind of give you like, hey, they hint back at it. But they didn't have any money. And they had a conversation earlier in the car about God. I think that's what it was. That kind of triggered him too. Whenever they were running out of gas, when he was listening to Marvin Sapp, he says something about God, and she says she don't believe in it. And he said, "Oh Lord, help me." And it was just funny. He was like, "You're probably crazy. You're probably one of those crazy women think the black woman is God." And it got quiet. And that's the first time that I'll allude to that. You talk about nature, spirituality. So, and then peep this. So whenever they realized they didn't have any money at the store, the burger joint. They're rummaging around. She says, check the glove box. He looks in there. He doesn't find anything. He doesn't find anything. But when she looks in there, she looks through some stuff. She finds some money. And he says, look at God. It was so funny to me because I'm like, dog, like, if y'all weren't trying to be more direct about what y'all trying to say in the nature of learning about consciousness. And that's the second time, like right after the other, that they give you, that type of message, So boom, they have some money, and they notice these kids over there playing and skateboarding. And of course, the little chubby kid comes over with his skateboard, and she says she bribes him or whatever, and they order some food. Like, hey, you want to make some money and some free food, whatever. And they order. He makes a joke. It's like, man, y'all want all that food. Excuse me, y'all want all that food. There ain't gonna be no money left over, but I got you. So he goes get whatever, and then they're eating, and they're outside. You know, like they're outside on the tailgate of the truck, and they're eating with each other. And I think this is when he asks her, what does she do? No, the guy's smacking, eating real loud, and then she's like, can you not eat so loud? Like it's killing my appetite, whatever have you. And he's like, I've never heard that before, where a person can have their appetite killed by listening to another person eat. And he was like, well, how do you eat with people? Like, how, whatever. And she was like, I usually eat alone, which alluded to the problem of the single black woman who's high esteemed in her field, typical case. Typical situation, should I say. And he asked her, was she a good lawyer? Now this was big, because it impressed so many different thoughts depending on what type of person you are as a black man or woman, right? So it's all about how you took it. That's why I honestly didn't take it no way. It's just the fact that the movie had so many subliminals. It was crazy. He asked her, were you a good lawyer? And she says immediately, before he asked her that, he asked her, are you scared? And she immediately says no. And he says, you lying. And she says, how do you know? And he says, my dad told me if you answer too quickly, you're lying, because you had a lie ready to go. And he's like, And she's like, I always was told that if you answer quickly, you're assured of your answer. I don't remember who went first on that nature of back and forth, or dialogue, should I say, but it's just that conversation before asking. He asked her, were you a good lawyer? And her immediate response, I'm an excellent lawyer. And then he says, why do black people always feel the need to be excellent? Why can't we just be ourselves? So picture, they allude to identity crisis twice already. And then they give you this conversation of black excellence and then being yourself. If there's an identity crisis amongst people, how do we, amongst our people in specific, how do we know to even be ourselves? Who are we? And pause to say, for me, that's the premise in becoming conscious and learning this information for me, to learn about self. This ain't about just helping everyone and everyone else. If I gotta change myself if I want to change the world first, but I gotta learn who I am if I want to do anything else with it to help anyone else, But depending on who you are, you could have took that several different ways, Who is he to say that I'm not excellent? Why shouldn't I feel like I'm excellent? Then there's the who am I? Then there's exactly what he said. Why do I feel the pressure to be excellent as a black man or woman out here? And when you look at it from that one direct principle too, or perception, it's like there is a pressure to be us here, in a lot of different ways. We don't fit into a system. We don't fit the mold of a system I wouldn't say modern day, but stereotypical success, So there is a pressure just to be whoever we are and still find a way to be fruitful here. Let's just say it like that way, especially based on the system that's here. So that conversation, again, right there could have been taken so many different ways, but it was deposed exactly that thought. So it's like they pause after they say that to give you that second to ponder that. You can tell she thought about that. And then she's like, come on, let's go. So when they get ready to go, the little boy that got them the food runs back up to the car and shows them that, they're on film, they're on tape, what they did, da 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 da, and that his dad wanted to talk to him, and like they're kind of like, okay, we gotta go, little boy. Hey, thanks, da da da, whatever, whatever, and they get ready to pull off, and the little boy is a short, chubby little boy. So his dad is a short, chubby man. So it's like they fit each other. And it's like what made it funny is that when they got ready to pull off, it's the guy driving this time. He hits him. He hits him in the knee. And he don't like kill him or whatever, but he hits him like, and they get out the car and the guy's like, man, watch out where you're going next time. Man, what you doing? What's wrong with y'all, man? And it like the little boy and the dad are like fussing with each other back and forth. I won't get into it because like it was a comedy break basically. Like that was much needed for the suspense that they built up into the moments, right? So cool, boom, hit us with the comedy break. And they wasn't gonna take him to the hospital. Obviously, they running from the police, so they crushed for time. But you can see the guy Slim, like his heart was in the right place for real, because like at all given moments, like the movie really could have been called Queen, because again, they never said each other's name and Slim was just there, so to say. She basically spoke for him throughout the movie, but she saw the compassion that he gave to exemplify love into her, for her to begin to see what love was, which is why it was so impactful. So boom, he wants to take them to the hospital, so he takes them. So while they're in the car, the big guy and the son is in the back. The reason why he wanted to talk to him is because he was saying they basically support what they were doing and what they did, and they get it, and they was making it funny. And the reason why I have vindication up there is that they try to give us that feeling of vindication in being able to shoot a cop, get away with it, not have gone to jail, and then be on the run, so to say. Give us that feeling of rebellion, because they alluded to knowing that cops kill us. They alluded to knowing that, the statistics of that, so to say, too. So they didn't hide that at all. And then it was at that moment, too, they also asked them, did they do it on purpose? Because by chance, that particular cop had actually harassed and killed an unarmed black girl 2 years ago and gotten away with it. And it was all over the news at that time, and neither one of them knew that. So they looking at each other like, what did we really get ourselves into? So the guy's still going off in the back. Yeah, shoot him up, so whatever. So again, and that was at that point to give that feeling of vindication, like, okay, yeah, we finally got our lick back. We finally got ours, like to make you feel like that, right? That whole rebellion thing. And it's like, so boom, they get to the hospital, let them out, whatever, and they continue going down to where they're going to in Louisiana, New Orleans. So boom, they get to her uncle's house. And immediately you can see the tension between her and her uncle. And again, the guy Slim always alluded to his family throughout the movie. But what was crazy about it is the fact that we never saw a point where his family was looking for him. None of that. Like nobody was looking for him. Nobody raised an eyebrow about any of that, and nobody paid that any attention. So it's like when we get to her uncle's house and we find out that there's this friction between her and her uncle, and they don't get along, like at all, and that he owed her for something, and that, that's why she found refuge there for whatever. Whenever they got ready to lay down that night, you know, um, they both had cut their hair by the time they laid down or whatever, but he asked her, like, why does your uncle owe you? And she's like, because I got him out of jail one time. Da da da. Who did he kill? He's like, he must have did a bad crime, da da da, this and that and this. Like, who did he kill? Whatever. And she's like, my mother. And she turns over. And it's at that moment that they set the tone for the reasoning why she was so rude and mean and brash and ugly, because she had grown up and gone through so much trauma that she externalized it, in the way she moved, in relationships too, said in to say that, that was the tone that they tried to set for most of our women, that there's a trauma behind reasonings, there's a trauma-based thought or reasoning or trauma-based reason behind response into why they act the way they act and do the things they do and treat us the way they treat us, So when you talk about us right now in the culture and dating, why there's a frustration in certain black men and why frustration in certain black men and how, the black women treat us, they directly give you that reasoning in trauma based on this movie, based on the archetype of who she was, being the epitome or the figure, for us right now. So, boom. When I saw that, I'm just like, dang. So it's starting to click. It's starting to make sense. Like, but this is what they're saying that the average, black woman is. So it's like, all right. They get up, the police come that night for whatever reason of her uncle had an argument with, one of his girlfriends in the house. He actually was the term is actually pronounced Iraq, not Iraq. So I'm going to say it correctly for sake of, just being proper on that. So the guy had served in Iraq, and he was a little loony from that, but he also got disability from it. So he had a lot of women around, and he got into it with one of the women because he thought they had stolen something from him, whatever, slapped her around. So said the neighbors had called the police, but one of the police ended up being a guy that slept with one of his girls or something like that. So, but when they came, they noticed the truck, and it kind of posed that whole like, yeah, they need to go. So they ended up leaving again. The uncle gave them the new car, blah blah blah, whatever, and so they left. So boom, they leave, and they just get on the road again. And this was like kind of a important part too, though. So they get on the drive. She gets in the back seat. I think is she resting for a while? And he pulls over, and they stop. And he's like, he hear live music and want to take on like a second date or whatever. And she's like, well, he asked her, would you have gone on a second date with me? And she's like, no, nothing personal. And he's like, and it's at that moment, it's just like, he's still trying to prove that he's worth something to this woman, even in midst of everything that's going on, and she's still not having had accepted him for whatever reasons. And she's like, well, what would the second date have been? And it's at that moment, it's like he sees hope in that, right? So he convinces her to go just dance with him, whatever, wherever they are. I think they're in Alabama at this time. That's just how the setting is seemed. But yeah, so boom, they go in, they dance or whatever, and they have a first dance. Because he has to convince her to get a little comfortable. To have a first dance, she get a little comfortable. She starts to feel the vibe on him, And he goes to get her a drink, And the lady at the bar basically lets him know. My accent came out. But the lady at the bar basically let him know, like, okay, cool, they recognize who they are and they're safe. And he tells the bartender that he don't drink because he promised the girl that he's with a drink. But yeah, she pours him one too, and he's like, I don't drink. She's like, baby, you should. No, she's like, baby, you should start. And that's when he realizes, like, she recognizes him, and she says, you're safe here. And she goes back. Well, Slim goes back to Queen. It's like, I think they recognize us. It's like, I don't think anything's wrong. I think we're good. So they have another dance, and he asks her, what do you want? And this is a very important part of the movie, because this is where we discover, like, what we like. They give that base principle of love, like what we are looking for, especially from the woman's side, right? And she says, and this is why they're in dance, while they're dancing, got the mood, got this zone going, right? And her response is, I want someone to love me in spite of my scars, and kiss every one of them. And no matter how ugly or rude or nasty it can be, still hold my hand throughout it all while I heal myself. Not for you to heal them, but again, for her to heal herself. And it was at that moment, like, he really realizes, like, what she wants and who she is. But again, up until this point, they've set the tone as to what the archetype of Black woman is. So having said that, and they get in a car, at that point they leave, because they realize that the people recognize them, and there's now an attention on them, and they're okay with it. Like, the people in the room are okay with it. It's not hostile, but they're like, nah, we don't need this attention. We need to go. So they go, boom. So they get in the car, get back on the road. He's driving, she's in the back seat, relaxing, whatever. And shoot. And she asks him, so what do you want? And he says the basic answer, a ride or die. And she, but he explains it. He's like, someone that'll hold my hand and never let go. Someone that'll just love me for me. I don't need, like, the world to know everything about me or whatever have you. As long as my woman remembers me fondly, her really being my legacy. And that statement, her my legacy, stuck with her. At that point, it's like a camera zoom on her. You can see, like, how that's setting in her, like, dang, like, he don't even really want all the big flashy stuff, like, in this and that's. Like, men are really simple, like that, or the premise of love in him, should I say, was really simple. And that's when it began to click to her, certain stuff. So they continue on. That's still in the ambiance of that night. So the next scene, they go to that daytime, and they're kind of getting a little closer and knowing each other, whatever have you, especially in lieu of the situation. So boom, the car breaks down, and they have to get it to a mechanic shop. So he pushes the car in reverse, basically, to this mechanic shop they passed a couple miles back. And again, I think at this point they're either in Mississippi or Alabama, I don't remember. And they push to the shop, whatever have you. Boom. And they bump into a mechanic, and the mechanic overcharges them because he recognizes them, and he's the only person as a Black man that they've run into at this point that don't support what they're doing. And he gives his opinion, he gives his reason why, and it wasn't like that he was wrong. He had valid reasons for what it was and for him being who he was. It's not that he felt like he wanted to turn them in. It was just like he don't support the whole extra, because now people felt as though it was okay to kill a cop. And I got that. Like, it clicked to me that perception is really everything. There was, based on the nature of what had happened, there was no way to just deem them all the way innocent when you talk about perception, especially from the other side, So it it basically alluded to why what she said and even if the guy had been black that they waved down when they were in Kentucky, why it wouldn't have always been, why it couldn't have, been just a good thing too. They could have ran into him and he could have turned them in too. So it could have been one of them things. And he basically stood as the Uncle Tom figure that we would look at, so to say. And I roll my eyes, so to say, when I said it, because again, I understand why he said it. Again, me being me, I ain't turning nobody in that situation. I'm be honest, like it's just not happening. Period. Excuse me, but period. No. But and he overcharged him. So again, he stood as the whole Uncle Tom person, so to say. So boom. They're watching him with the car, especially after having been overcharged. They don't know how to trust him for it, whatever. So Slim tries to go use the bathroom, and while he goes use the bathroom, he passes through the office and he sees a phone. Now this is when they allude to family being everything for him, yet also saying that he doesn't have any too, and that really, like, this, when he explained legacy to Queen, at that time, why that was important to us in creating that in family, in a woman, why we hold that so dear to us, because he goes to, pause to say what they allude to, he goes to use the bathroom, sees the phone, and if I'm not mistaken, he goes to call his family and nobody answers. So all right, cool. He comes out of the bathroom. The girl gets into the whole little argument with the mechanic again because she's being impatient, and the mechanic gets his son to walk them down to the river or the lake or something like that to free their heads up and clear their minds. And the son is a fan of them because he's seen them all over social media, on the TV, whatever. And they, he's part of the movement, so to say. They've basically started a movement. And they spent a little time with him. His name is Junior. And it's funny, he was named Junior because it's going to come back in a second why it was so important that he was named Junior, and why they took the legacy part of what Slim talked about and kind of shaped it and warped it to something else. So taking them to the river, the little boys talking to them, about, standing for what they are doing, and there's a rally the next day for them, and just how much support they have, right? And he was just saying, the little boy was saying how, he wanted the world to know that he was here, and they was just trying to let him know, as long as his family knows that he's here is all that matters. All that extra is not even important. Basically like combating some of the nature of image that was placed on them that they knew wasn't positive, that wasn't affecting the culture positively for how he was talking to them. And what they grabbed from it is that he just wanted to be known and remembered, whether it be for good or bad, whether he was a martyr or whether he became infamous, and that isn't how we should be looking to become. However, that's the example that's pushed off to us to focus more on infamy, becoming infamous, and things of that nature, as opposed to being known for more positive things or making it be cool to be known for positive things, whereas there's more of a draw to the negative for infamy, right? Which then shapes the culture of a people. But anywho, we'll leave that there. But that's the basis of what type of conversation they were having on the riverbank. And so when they go back and their car is finished and they leave, and she's driving and I believe she passes a state where her mother's buried, and she's crying. It's late at night, and she turns around and they go visit it. So boom, she tells the story of what their relationship was like, and the relationship between her and her mother was horrible. A trauma there, that they were very distant. And there was a relationship that her mom wanted with the daughter, with Queen, that Queen just wouldn't give, and they would go months at a time without talking, and that Queen actually hated that. However, she just wouldn't give her mom a certain type of affection and connection, and she regretted it. And I see that happen all too often too, more now than it used to be, to a point where it's become norm. But again, this is them setting up that feeling and that mood of the archetype of black woman that's here still, or here now in the culture that we deal with. So, and again, all throughout, the guy Slim just standing by her side. So she explains the grief in that nature, but then they get back on the road a little bit. Well, actually, no, they don't get on the road immediately after that. They stop like on a cutback on a country road, and they just talk. And they talk about the nature of her uncle's case that she got him out of jail for. Cause she's sometimes very angry about the fact that she defended her uncle for basically killing her mother. She explained that she knew it was an accident. She explained the nature of Iraq war messing up his mind, and that he wasn't the same, and that so on and so forth. And he pushed in the heat of a moment of battle argument, he pushed her and she slipped down the stairs and she cracked her skull, whatever have you, and she fought for her uncle, based on the nature, she knew it was an accident. And Slim asked her, like, do you sometimes wish hate him, and wish that she were still here and he wasn't? And she said all the time, she was just frustrated about it. And it was deep, because as she's releasing this trauma, this ultimate frustration of why she is the way she is, she finally like becomes her ultimate and most vulnerable state. And then it goes into a sex scene. Now, what was so profound about the sex scene to me was it was the climax, right? But it was their climax, right, too. And then when you think about legacy, it's like that's how you create a legacy, through procreation. And while they're having the sex scene go on, they're clipping back to the kid whose name was Junior, right? Who was impacted by what they did, in the nature of their situation, who had gone to the rally. And he goes to this rally and gets active with it, within the crowd of people who's angry about the situations. Let them go, stop killing us, that so on and so forth. He's in the riot, and he's one of the more belligerent ones, to the point where he pulls out a gun and kills a cop, and he kills a black cop at that. And what was funny about it, the cop was trying to send him home, trying to tell him he's just a kid, trying to give him, some guidance for real. And again, he shoots him. And it's funny because there was someone in the background, like in the background of the kid shooting him, that was a part of the crowd that you could see cringing at what was going on. It was crazy, bro. So and it's like this happens. And again, it's at the climax and heighten of what they're doing centrally over on there too, because they're clipping back between that and their sex scene. So when you talk about them just having had a conversation of legacy setting, to say that this is the legacy that we lead. So, boom. When you get to, the uncle had sent them to an address to make it to, I think, the Harrisons or something like that. No, the Shepherds. And and they make it to the Shepherds, and they happen to be a white couple. And I'm not gonna say where they're from quite yet because it'll make sense in a second. But yeah, they make it there, and the uncle had already warned them that nice guy, coolest guy ever, that they were going to meet, Mr. Shepherd, but their wife, not so much. That's kind of how you said it. So they get there, and Mr. Shepherd's real nice guy, but the wife is basically talking about turning them in, whatever. Like she ain't with it, like she ain't with holding it down type thing or whatever. You know, she thinks it's crazy that Mr. Shepherd even allowed them in the home, but they get, there's that immediate tension when they get there to the Shepherds. But then, of course, he convinces them to stay, and then he hits them with the ultimate one. Y'all hungry? So they go to dinner, whatever. And the wife is still talking smack. She's like, there's a bounty on y'all heads. And she's like, the Queen's like, what's the amount? 250,000. She's like, Queen's like, together? She's like, nah, each. She's like, nah, still not enough. And the woman's like, enough to pay our mortgage. And Mr. Shepherd is like, hey, enough now. Oh my goodness. But alluding back to saying what I said about how deep the line about when she said when they got pulled over or when they ran out of gas in Kentucky, when they ran out of gas in Kentucky, they had to flag down the car, and the guy says, let's hope that they're black. And she says that isn't always a good thing. When they ran into the guy in Alabama, that was an allude back to that. And then running into the Shepherds, that was an allude back to that too, saying to say you never know who you can and can't trust, and saying that one over the other based on skin color shouldn't be a thing they were looking for in these times. You either are or you aren't. That's just all I say about that. And especially when you talk about your heart and nature of love. So cool, boom. Then the police will show up at some point. The Shepherds give them this place that they can hide within the house, like in the floorboards. So boom, they finally, they hide for almost a day. So they finally come out of hiding, and they have to jump out the window based on it's something that happened. Like they had to jump out the window. So boom, they jump out the window. And he has to put Queen's arm back in place. And the police are outside, like searching the premises and area. So that's why they jumped out the window. They knew they couldn't just, go out the front door. That would have been stupid. So they make it to the little side garage. They hotwire the car, and they clip to the policemen who were on duty. And there was a black cop and a white cop, and skinny black cop and a let's just say fat white cop just was what it was, is what it is. And I know they did that on purpose too. The cop was the white cop was giving the black cop a hard time, like on some. The black cop says, "Hey, I heard something back there." He was like, "It's probably just," and the white cop says, "It's probably just some deer in the bushes back there." He's like, "Nah, it sounded like somebody was whimpering, crying. I think we should check it out." It's like, "Well, maybe you should go check it out back there, boy." Something like that. And the black cop was like, "Watch how you talk to me." He's like, "Ooh, a sensitive one." And he says, whatever. Just basically kind of alluding that there is a tension amongst, that culture of job and line of work, and there's a knowingness about it, is more or less what they were trying to say. Even within the culture of even within the police force. So cool, whatever. They finally hotwire the car throughout that tension, suspense, whatever. And as soon as they get the car started, like, how do we get out of here? The garage was closed, and the black cop raises the he raises the garage door, and he sees them, but he lets them free. And it just alludes to the reasoning why they didn't go to the police, and said and to say like that their reasoning was in a way justified, because again, he just lets them go and they go back on their journey. So boom, when the black cop is going back to his little post where they were, and the white cop asked him, so what was back there, guy? And he was like, And the black cop says, "Oh, nothing, just some deers. I had to let free from, cut free for some branches." Like, and he's like, with a little smirk on him. And the white cop responds back, like, "Yeah, told you, man, little old nature city boy." Something like that. And it was just like, just giving that whole message back to, as to say, like, that the reasoning why they ran was in a way justified, giving that vindication to their rebellion. So the shepherds give them another person to meet that can get them, basically across that body of water that they're planning to go over in Cuba. The one decision that Slim made throughout the whole thing, and they meet with this guy with gold teeth, somebody they didn't expect the shepherds to know. And again, they all kind of knew each other through Iraq. All of these people had served together, so that's how they got their connections. And it was funny, they were basically saying that all of these people that helped them were government related people, or had served in the government enough to know, like, that what they were doing was real and was justified, or that the probable cause was probably more real and justified and honest than what most would think, which is why they supported it. So when they met up with the last guy, I don't remember his name. I don't even think he gave a name either. He's bringing them to, their the plane, and he's smoking a J, and they're just getting to a point where they vibing and living their life. They never know what's gonna happen. Ooh, actually got to go back. So before they get to the shepherds, Queen was driving, and they come across this pasture that had a white horse in it, and she was just blown away at it, and Slim had never ridden a horse. And she was like, her uncle used to take her all the time. And she said that her uncle told her that a white man fears the black man on a horse because they have to look up at him. Now, that wasn't even the significance of it, to be completely honest. If you know what you know that the significance of the white horse is an allusion to William Cooper, or Bill Cooper, as some people know him, as the author to the book of Behold a Pale White Horse, which is a book that was released, I want to say, in the 80s or 90s. Might have been a little before then. That exposed a lot of information in reference to just what goes on with the powers that be. And even down to predicting his death in a certain type of way. Like, a lot of that information came to be true. And it was an allusion to basically saying that the fact that all of these people who had government backgrounds were helping them, they knew that what they were doing was real and true. Like, it wasn't just two people being rebellious, but it would be seen that way from a certain group of people. So it was an allusion to that above everything. And I feel like there's something I'm forgetting before I close out. Nope, keep going. So moving forward, they're on their way to the plane, and they're basically just being told to live their life, and the guy's just telling them, like, they're like, how much hope, and how much belief that the two of them have given the culture back, the people back. And it was at that time, like, they kind of just looked at each other like, dang, the two of us, like, we barely know each other. We barely even knew each other before what happened. And that kind of alluded to me in saying that love don't love nobody. It's a frequency. It's something that's felt. It doesn't matter how long you've known a person, or how long you haven't known a person. If it's love, it's love. It's just kind of what it is, So they make it to the runway, and the police show up, and they're holding each other's hand as they're going, running toward the plane. And then they turn around and they begin to have a sidebar conversation with each other as the police are trying to get them to surrender. And she's like, "I'll hold your hand forever." And he's like, "So will I," so on and so forth. Ooh, This is what I wanted to say too before I close. While they were on the riverbank with the kid, he tells them, I hope you make it. And they're both like, Slim's like, yeah, I hope we make it too. And he was like, even if you don't, y'all become immortal. And that was just so deep for saying that the energy never dies, you know? But we'll get to that, back to that in a second too. But so cool. They're having that sidebar talk before they it's almost like they're trying to figure out if they're gonna surrender or just go out, you know? And they're having their little sidebar conversation, you know, I'll hold your hand forever, you know? And he looks at her and tells her, I would have kissed all of your scars and let you, you know, to help you heal them. And she says, I know you would have. And she says, I would have been your legacy. And he says, like, but it's you almost have to see it to get the premise of what I'm explaining. His immediate response was, but you already are. But as soon as he said, you already are, it's like just as fast as I snapped, she got shot and died. Almost as if to say, your legacy is killed, or your legacy is to die, or legacy needs to be killed. Legacy is to be killed. And it's like, it struck me so heavy to see that conversation was being had right before she died, knowing that legacy is procreation and, you know, kids. And while they were in procreation, Junior was basically what they were trying to allude to, what they were creating legacy. So like what they would depict us to create in legacy, right? So when you see that she gotten killed right after having that be said, was just like, dang, bro, like mind blowing. So he picks her up, and at that moment, that's when he calls her queen. And that's like the first time he's ever even said even that. I don't remember ever hearing him say throughout the course of the movie, calling her name and alluding to her as queen. Never. And that solidifies the identity crisis that we have. But knowing that her only name was Queen says a whole lot too. Think about that. So he picks up her body and he walks her like toward the police. And they're saying, like, you know, they're making threats like, one more step, we will shoot. One more, like, and he's getting closer. And they finally just riddle him with bullets. And it's like, of course he dies, but like even how he drops the body and where the camera angle pans soon as they fall. Cause like they're showing from the back when he drops and then he falls, and then they pan to the top angle. You can see how they drop in the figure of a cross, as if to show the Christ energy. Now, if you know what you know esoterically about the Christ energy is to overall show you love, or to overall give you the premise of love, help you unlock that heart chakra. That's what you're supposed to learn overall throughout the story of Christ. If you don't learn that, you missed it fully. And that's what the epitome of it is. You know, Christ gave his life for the world. That alone is love. So seeing how he fell and falling into the cross figure, and me knowing the esoteric teachings of Christ in love, to know that they're trying to show us that love we seek could be dead. It just, or that we're in a system that don't fit it, which makes it die, which is dead. It just, it was kind of too much for me to take in. I don't think I can watch that movie again. I don't think I can. But in short, the reason why it was important for me to break it down is because most people wouldn't even had seen it like that. even the very end, when you go to the funeral portion, that's when they died, that's when they released their names. Angela Johnson was her name, and I don't remember his name because they didn't even, you know, they didn't pay him any real specific attention. Even throughout the memorial and burial service, we never see his family. We only just see more depictions of everything we went throughout the movie, and witnessing her family, her background, that type of thing. Even like the service, we only see one coffin. We don't even see two, you know? So like, man, in short, there was such a heavy impression left upon us from that movie. From a conscious premise, and I'm saying conscious like that you could see without, you know, digging too deep, but then subconsciously the messages being conveyed and impressed upon us to remain a certain type of way, to mold a way of thinking, to perpetuate and push a type of culture, or to continue a type of culture, when we're desperately looking for a way out of what's currently going on as the problem to a lot of love life situations, and yet be shown that our trauma is really what we're in love with and what we should hold dear to. That's kind of what I grasped from it, because so many people were intertwined with it because they could see themselves, you know. Not deep in, we have to be careful of what we're consuming, but we have to just be aware of what's going on. That's all I can say, because subconsciously there's always messages being sent to us, you know, at every level, especially in movies. But when you don't know what's going on, they can get you. They almost got me. That's all I can say. Think for yourself above everything. Love yourself, you know, because it hurt to see how much trauma that woman dealt with, and how much love, like self-love, that it basically showed that she didn't have. And they basically trying to say that our women don't have. You know, Slim did his best to protect her, which is excuse me, which is what they want. But, you know, there has to be a reciprocation of that too, you know, to in a lot of different levels, you know. But in short, overall, and to close, make sure that you're aware of what you're taking in. You know, I know I said that, but just make sure that you're aware of what you're taking in. Make sure you can see it for what it is, you know, so that you're not under the spell of certain stuff, you know. And then so that you don't fall in certain cycles and not understand why you're in certain cycles, and it be because of what you've consumed and not because of what you're aware of, you know. So yeah, like I say, today's movie breakdown was because I saw so many subconscious and subliminal messages in a movie that I know most people missed and only gained what they wanted you to see, what they tried to push in a sense of entertainment, but what they really said, right? So yeah, but yeah, that's all for today. You dig what I'm saying? Rather long one, but I appreciate y'all and y'all time. You dig? So stay up, stay safe, and stay prosperous. You dig? Love.